Tucker Carlson showed up in Moscow this week to interview Vladimir Putin. It turned out to be anything but an interview. Putin droned on for 2 hours and 7 minutes, while Tucker sat there like an eager puppy. Occasionally, but rarely, he got in a question, like this one about the power of the deep state in Washington.
Chris Wallace, a titan of broadcast journalism, known for his incisive interviews and unwavering commitment to objectivity, stunned the media world when he abruptly left Fox News after 18 years. As the son of the legendary 60 Minutes correspondent Mike Wallace, Chris had carved out his own formidable reputation in political reporting. His departure in December 2021 sparked intense speculation and debate. Now, after months of silence, we know the truth behind the reasons of his shocking exit. The turning point. As the autumn leaves fell in November 2020, Chris Wallace found himself at a crossroads he never anticipated. For years, he'd been a stalwart figure at Fox News, known for his incisive questioning and commitment to journalistic integrity. The network had been his professional home for nearly 2 decades, a place where he felt he could pursue truth and hold power to account. But as the results of the 2020 presidential election began to roll in, Wallace sensed a shift in the air, a change that ultimately led him to question his place at the network. In the days following the election, as votes were still being counted and tensions ran high across the nation, Wallace observed a troubling transformation in the tone and content of Fox News' programming. The network, which had long walked the tightrope between news and conservative commentary, seemed to be tipping decidedly towards the latter. Segments that once focused on factual reporting were increasingly giving way to speculation and unsubstantiated claims about election fraud. Wallace, ever the journalist, found himself increasingly at odds with this new direction. He watched with growing concern as some of his colleagues began to echo baseless theories about stolen votes and rigged machines. The very foundations of American democracy, the sanctity of the electoral process, were being called into question on the airwaves he had long considered home. As November turned to December and then to January, his unease only grew. The events of January 6, 2021, when a mob stormed the U.S. Capitol, marked a turning point. He realized the network he joined nearly 2 decades ago was no longer the same. The turning point had come, and with it, the realization that his journey at Fox News was coming to an end.
Chris Wallace speaking out for the first time about why he left Fox News after so many years. In this interview with the New York Times, Wallace said, quote, "I'm fine with opinion, conservative, liberal opinion, but when people start to question the truth, like who won the 2020 election, was January 6th an insurrection, I found that unsustainable."
The struggle with network programming. As the dust settled from the stormy election aftermath, Chris Wallace found himself navigating an increasingly treacherous landscape at Fox News. The network's programming, once a delicate balance of news and opinion, had begun to tip dramatically towards the latter. Wallace, a seasoned journalist with a reputation for hard-hitting interviews and fact-based reporting, felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. The change was subtle at first, a gradual increase in opinion-heavy segments, a slow erosion of the line between news and commentary. But as the months wore on, Wallace couldn't ignore the seismic shift occurring around him. Primetime slots, once reserved for a mix of reporting and analysis, were now dominated by hosts who seemed more interested in stoking outrage than informing viewers. Wallace's discomfort reached a fever pitch with the release of Tucker Carlson's Patriot Purge series on Fox Nation, the network's streaming platform. The documentary, which presented a revisionist take on the January 6th Capitol riot, crossed a line for Wallace. He saw it not just as a departure from responsible journalism, but as a dangerous foray into conspiracy theories that could further divide an already fractured nation. Troubled by this turn of events, Wallace didn't remain silent. He took his concerns directly to Fox News management, engaging in frank discussions about the network's direction. These conversations weren't easy. Wallace found himself caught between his loyalty to the network that had been his home for nearly 2 decades and his commitment to journalistic integrity. His wife Lorraine became his confidant and sounding board. Their evening walks through their Washington, D.C. neighborhood became strategy sessions, with Lorraine offering both emotional support and practical advice. Her background in media, coupled with her role as a cookbook author, gave her a unique perspective on the challenges Wallace was facing. As the struggle with the network programming intensified, Wallace found himself increasingly isolated. Colleagues he had once considered allies seemed to be drifting towards the new norm, leaving him feeling like a lone voice crying out in the wilderness. The final straw was when Wallace realized his presence on the network was being used as a shield against criticism. Every time Fox News faced backlash for controversial programming, his name would be invoked as proof of the network's commitment to balanced journalism. As summer turned to fall in 2021, he had reached a crossroads. The struggle with programming had become more than just a professional disagreement. It had evolved into a moral quandary. With a heavy heart, he began to contemplate his next move.
It is a great company, and this is a very exciting hybrid because on the one hand, as you just said, I'm on HBO Max, 3 interviews a week, drop each Friday. We have 3 that just dropped today. And then the best parts of those 3 interviews on CNN, prime time, 7 o'clock Sunday night. So
the move to CNN. Chris made the monumental decision to leave Fox News. The move sent shockwaves through the industry, but for Wallace, it was the culmination of months of soul-searching. His destination? CNN, a network that had promised him the freedom to pursue the kind of journalism he had always championed. The transition had its challenges. Wallace found himself stepping into a new role at CNN Plus, the network's ambitious streaming platform. It was a leap into the digital future of news, a frontier that both excited and daunted the veteran broadcaster. As he set up his new office, adorned with mementos from his long career, Wallace couldn't help but reflect on the changing landscape of the industry. In the first few weeks at CNN, he immersed himself in the network's culture, getting to know his new colleagues and adapting to a different newsroom dynamic. He found a renewed sense of purpose in crafting his new show, Who's Talking to Chris Wallace. The program allowed him to delve into long-form interviews with a diverse array of guests. But the media landscape continued to shift unpredictably. Just as he was settling into his new role, CNN Plus faced unexpected headwinds. The streaming service's abrupt shutdown weeks after its launch was a stark reminder of the volatility of the modern media environment. But he remained unshaken. He found a new home on HBO Max and CNN's Sunday night lineup. Throughout this period of transition, he found himself reflecting deeply on the state of broadcast journalism. He observed the increasing polarization of news outlets, the rise of social media as a primary source of information, and the challenges these trends posed to traditional journalism. The move to CNN marked not just a new chapter in Chris's career, but a pivotal moment in his lifelong quest for journalistic excellence. As he looked to the future, he felt a mix of optimism and determination. The Wallace family dynamic. Lorraine, Chris's wife of over 2 decades, has proven to be a far more than supportive spouse. Her background in the entertainment industry, coupled with her successful career as a cookbook author, gave her a unique perspective on the challenges Chris faced in the media world. Her Soup Sundays tradition had become a cornerstone of family life, providing a weekly opportunity for the extended Wallace clan to come together, share a meal, and discuss the week's events. The Wallace family dynamic was a testament to the power of second chances and blended families. Chris's children from his previous marriage, Peter, Megan, Andrew, and Catherine, had grown into adults with their own careers and families. Lorraine's children, Sarah and Remick, from her marriage to Dick Smothers, had also become an integral part of the Wallace family unit. As Chris navigated the choppy waters of his career transition, the family rallied around him. Sunday dinners became impromptu strategy sessions, with adult children offering perspectives from their own professional experiences. The Wallace's home in Washington, D.C. had become a hub of activity, hosting not just family gatherings, but also informal meetings with colleagues and friends. It was a space where personal and professional lives intertwined. Now it's time to hear from you. Where do you think Chris will go next with his talents? Let us know in the comments section below.